Hello, my name is Gil Penalosa, and this is Cities for Everyone, the webinar, where every other Tuesday I invite fascinating people to share their knowledge and experience with all of us so that we can become better, passionate advocates on creating cities that are more equitable, sustainable, and fun. Originally, I'm from Bogota, Colombia, but I've been living in Toronto for 26 years. And 20 years ago, I created 880 cities. I have worked in over 350 cities around the world. And this webinar is a way of giving back. And today we have a fascinating topic. It's nature-based solutions for managing stormwater and creating parks and urban resilience. And I have three fantastic guests with very different background each. Gideon Berger, whose program director is City Parks Alliance. He's based in Washington. Rachel Bennett, who is Director of Health and Equity at MIT in Berkeley, California. And she has a master's in public health and also in urban planning. And Wayne Miles, who is a stormwater program manager in Raleigh, North Carolina. Welcome. Thank you. Please tell us about nature-based solutions. So, Rachel, Gideon, Wayne, welcome. As you saw from when people were signing in, we have people from all over the world. They are here because we are all eager. Sometimes it's confusing what really nature-based solutions is. Also, what green storm water in parks. How is it that we can actually make it a win-win while building infrastructure from stormwater? We, at the end of the day, we are becoming more resilient and more parks. So please tell us a little bit about yourselves and tell us about the topic. We are all eager to learn from you.
Thank you so much, Gil, and hoping everyone can see the presentation okay. That's good. I'm Gideon Berger. I am the program director of the City Parks Alliance. I am an urban planner by training and by practice. And I'll be joined by my program consultant, Rachel Bennett, who's the director of health equity at MIG. And we're delighted for the second half of our presentation to have Wayne Miles, who's the Stormwater Program Manager and Assistant Director of Engineering Services at the City of Raleigh. And Wayne will be sharing several examples of how this work, as Gil was describing, on green stormwater in parks plays out in the City of Raleigh, who is really one of the leaders in this field. I just wanted to take a minute to explain who the City Parks Alliance is and why we're interested in this topic. We are a nonprofit membership organization. Most of our members are parks departments, parks nonprofits, and parks practitioners in the private sector, such as landscape architects and urban planners and consultants. And we have been around about 20 years, and our mission is really to support the role of parks in building more equitable and resilient and vibrant cities, much as Gil described the mission of the webinar series and his work. So there's great alignment there, and we are just absolutely delighted to be able to share with you, Gil's amazing audience around the world, some stories about the work we've been doing over the last couple of years on this topic of green stormwater infrastructure in parks, and really trying to demonstrate why putting green stormwater infrastructure in parks is a win-win for urban resilience. We'll get into those details. So first, let's start out with what are we talking about when we say green stormwater infrastructure, or the acronym that we sometimes use, GSI. Well, I'm sure everyone's familiar with gray concrete infrastructure, things like storm gutters and sewers and tunnels that move water, and they can move water very quickly. Most municipal standards, at least in the United States, are built to handle, 5-year flooding events, rain events, sometimes even more 10-year, 20-year events. But they can result in what you see in that picture on the top, where you have the park just completely flooded when you have very, very significant events with storms and rain. So nature-based solutions like GSI use the natural environment, our natural systems, our plants, our soils, are permeable surfaces, which many of our development codes require a minimum of on our development sites for this very reason, to manage and store stormwater where it falls naturally and hold it, retain it in places where it can provide benefits rather than letting it all run off and cause these flooding problems, which bring lots of concern about pollution. Um, on the flip side of that, when we manage stormwater naturally, there's all kinds of benefits that we'll get into as well. So this is where the win-win comes from. So what's the connection between green stormwater and parks? Well, we know in the world that storms are becoming more intense and less predictable. And many of our cities are really struggling to adapt their infrastructure to manage this increased intensity and increased frequency of major rainfall events. We also know that in our cities, parks have some of the largest publicly owned green spaces, where we have an opportunity to enhance the infrastructure that's in place. And that really makes them, many of them are along waterways. So they can be ideal sites to put green stormwater infrastructure. And because of the benefits that it brings, from reducing flooding to managing stormwater runoff, reducing the impact of pollution, and mitigating extreme heat, supporting biodiversity, improving your ecological health of your community. It seems like they would be a natural place for governments to publicly invest in green stormwater infrastructure to bring those public benefits as well, get more benefit for your public infrastructure spending, and achieve other related policy goals. I want to speak specifically about the goal of promoting social equity and its connection to this work as well. And this is a picture of Rodney Cook Jr. Park in Atlanta, which is sort of a great example of this. Historically, marginalized communities have had limited access to parks. We know that they also face greater environmental risks because of segregation and where housing was developed. Many minority communities and low-income communities and immigrant communities in the United States are much more prone to flooding, in addition to not having as much access to green space as other neighborhoods. So planning to bring more parks and to put green infrastructure in parks in these parts of our cities can offer flood protection and heat relief to these underserved areas. We also will speak about how it can help create jobs and support workforce development, as well as lead to better health outcomes. But we also just want to mention that, as with any public infrastructure investment, there's always a concern about creating value that could displace existing residents. And this term has been used in the parks world. The expression green gentrification is sometimes used to describe this. So in our work and in our research, we have talked about how there really needs to be an effort to pair anti-displacement and long-term funding strategies to ensure that these kinds of investments and improvements have a lasting impact and the benefits are equitably distributed. I just want to talk a little bit about why we don't see more of green stormwater in parks, because it seems like a no-brainer, yet it's not the way we do our park design and development in the United States, at least. Working with our cohort of practitioners from around the country, we've came up with sort of a list of the status quo in the practice today, why we don't see more of it. So the reason number one is that there can be a lack of shared vision across planning and parks agencies and stormwater management agencies. They also have separate funding streams, so it can be difficult to collaborate on capital projects. Related to that, there's siloed planning and operations. And the city itself may not have supported policies and regulations to do green infrastructure as opposed to traditional gray infrastructure. Related to that, there may be some skepticism by policymakers or some other practitioners about the efficacy of nature-based solutions, because we sort of have to measure their benefits a little bit differently over a longer life cycle than the way we typically measure gray infrastructure solutions. We've encountered that there's a lack of maintenance expertise to manage green infrastructure around the United States. And there can be challenges in engaging with some of the communities we just talked about because of a lack of trust, because of the lack of infrastructure investment and segregation in the past. But our work has led us to believe that stronger collaboration on funding, planning, and community engagement can really help to unlock parks' full potential for GSI, which can boost your city's resilience, efficiency, and cost savings from dealing with flooding events as well. I'll just take a minute to describe the initiative and the folks who were involved, like Wayne, who gave us a lot of their time and knowledge from their practice. So this was a partnership between the City Parks Alliance, the U.S. Water Alliance, and the Green Infrastructure Leadership Exchange. And we brought together a cohort of parks and stormwater practitioner leaders to inform us about how they work together, teach us about the barriers, and come up with ideas for the solutions. And you can see from this map the 8 cities from around the country: Boston, Pittsburgh, Raleigh, Atlanta, Milwaukee, Houston, Tucson, and Seattle, and all of the different public agencies and nonprofits that were involved. We have a couple of publications. I just wanted to draw folks' attention to our website, cityparksalliance.org/stormwater is a short URL you can use. This is a 2-pager, which we hope will be useful for dealing with city leaders, policy leaders, policymakers in your community to help make the case for why green stormwater in parks is a win-win. And then for the practitioners out there, we have a much longer document called Nature-Based Solutions for Managing Stormwater in Parks, which has 17 kind of mini case studies from around the country, most of them from our cohort, that really speak to how you can tap those benefits. And I'm going to let Rachel speak through the 7 categories of co-benefits that we identified through this work.
We're going to go through these fairly quickly to allow Wayne as much time as possible to talk about how this work really plays out in practice in the city of Raleigh, to speak to some of those challenges that Gideon mentioned, and how the city and community partners have pushed through those challenges. But just to talk through some of making the case for these co-investments in nature-based solutions in parks, we want to share this both to educate folks here and also to equip you with talking points, knowledge, examples, and contacts in case you want to make the case in your own city. So, for me, as a person who's trained in both public health and urban planning, one of the most important co-benefits of investing in green stormwater infrastructure in nature-based solutions in parks is that it promotes public health and it promotes climate resilience. So, just as one quick example, in the city of Houston, in Texas, in the United States, it's a very flat city and it's prone to flooding. And after one historic flood, although it seems like they're happening historic flood after historic flood, but after one, the city's mayor declared, we have to start doing things differently. We are going to invest in, flood proofing our infrastructure and our communities in new ways. That combined with a really sort of community driven, NGO driven effort to increase green space across the city has led to this incredible citywide effort called the Bayou Greenways Initiative, turning land adjacent to flood channels and bayous, where it's almost like canals through the city of Houston, into a series of trails and linear parks. But all of this doubles as places to catch stormwater and flood water when big storms do come. So there's been a citywide effort now between elected officials, community leaders, NGOs, and philanthropy to invest in this interconnected system that will both catch water and protect nearby homes and businesses and communities while also creating spaces for recreation, for community gathering, for physical activity, and cooling temperatures in the ever increasing heat. Another co-benefit, as Gideon spoke to, is that if designed intentionally and in collaboration with underserved communities, putting nature-based solutions into parks can have social equity benefits. I know this is something many of us grapple with, and each of us in our own city context will have different versions of how this story plays out. But as Gideon said, a long legacy of biased planning decisions in our own fields has created inequities in heat, in flooding risk, in health disparities, in wealth, in so much more. So, as Gideon mentioned quickly, in the city of Atlanta, in Georgia, in the southeastern US, the city has worked very closely, both the Parks Department and the Department of Watershed, so the Water Management Agency, with local philanthropy and with communities to create something called the West Side Future Fund. So, as the city is investing in these sort of next generation parks that explicitly promote climate resilience and nature-based solutions, they also are recognizing that this can drive speculative real estate development, and they want the benefits of these new investments to be enjoyed by the communities that have lived in these neighborhoods for so long. So this is a kind of a holistic investment strategy, not only in the built environment, but also in preserving affordable housing, in creating wealth building opportunities, in creating workforce development opportunities, and is really designed to ensure that predominantly African American, longtime residents of West Side Atlanta can benefit from these new investments. Another benefit that we see to this kind of work, again, as Gideon spoke to, is building community trust. Wayne is going to speak to this in the context of Raleigh, but there's lots of creative ways to engage young people, to engage community residents, to engage people who might not normally think of themselves as parks people or as stormwater infrastructure people in co-creating these solutions and in appreciating their benefits. So I'm not going to talk in too much detail about this, but I just want to mention that the work that Wayne and his team are doing in the city of Raleigh in North Carolina, here in the US, has found innovative ways to engage art and culture and community participation in understanding what these nature-based solutions can do and are doing for the community. As Gideon mentioned also, part of this is just about breaking through the status quo. Those of you who have been doing this work for a long time will remember about 20 years ago when the public health and the urban planning worlds came together in a more formal way, probably more intentionally than they have since the field's founding, to really come up with this new focus on built environment and health. And since then, we've had investments and research and a whole generation of practitioners like myself who have come up just understanding this is the way things should be. So, what we are finding in cities that are doing this work is there is now a whole generation of practitioners and community supporters that recognize this is the way things should be. The ways of the past are the ways of the past. We are moving forward. One example of this is in the city of Boston, here in the US, where the mayor appointed the first ever cabinet level position on green infrastructure, recognizing that this is not fringe, this is not a nice to have thing. This is central to the city's resilience, to how the city is planned and operated. And that position has gone on to use relationships to garner funding and community support to identify all of the different spaces in the city that could benefit from green infrastructure and to create a sense that this is what we do now, and it's a source of civic pride. Gideon mentioned quickly that there is sometimes a gap in maintenance expertise, and Wayne will speak a lot to this because one of the things that we hear about immediately for anyone who is working closely on these issues is maintenance can be a different challenge with green infrastructure. Not necessarily a bigger challenge, just a different challenge. And as we are all acculturating to this new way of thinking and new way of working, this is one of the biggest challenges that we see. At the same time, there is a huge opportunity here to create green jobs and to create a pipeline of folks who can not only build and design and install green infrastructure in parks, but also to maintain that infrastructure. In the state of Pennsylvania, here in the US, there are a couple of different cities that have piloted and now run really successful workforce development, job training, career development programs, including Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, where they take young people and they train them on how to create and maintain this green infrastructure in parks and in other city spaces, and then help place them into good, long-term, secure living wage jobs with city agencies or with private agencies to make sure that the workforce of the future is homegrown and is understanding how all of these things work together. Funding is always an issue. I'm sure we'll get some questions about that. And it is a real challenge. Not to sugarcoat it, this is something that everyone who works on these issues grapples with. At the same time, there are some very creative models that we are seeing coming out of different cities, including in the city of Atlanta, which has a first of its kind environmental impact bond, a sort of a social impact bond, but to fund green infrastructure, or in the city of Tucson in the Southwest desert climate in the US, which has combined a small fee on city customer water bills. So you get your water each month. There's a small fee, about $1 a month per household, plus a public bond that voters passed. And those two funding sources together combine to create a really robust green infrastructure in parks fund. So Wayne can talk a little bit more also about how Raleigh has funded their work, and we can certainly take questions on that. But the point is, you can fund this work sustainably. Finally, what we see in so much of our work is that proof of concept inspires belief that more is possible. So sometimes you start small with one demonstration project or with one partnership. Wayne can speak to how Raleigh started and proved that this is a new way of thinking that can work and it has benefits. What that has created is a sense of confidence in city leaderships, a sense of trust and buy-in from community leaders that, oh, right, this is the way things could be, and this is the way things should be, and then suddenly it's the way things are. So, with that, I would love to hand it over to Wayne, who's going to talk more about specifically how Raleigh does this work, some of the challenges that they encounter, and some of the ways they've pushed through.
Great. Thank you so much, Rachel, and thank you, Gideon. You all have really set the stage for me, and I can vouch for on the ground in Raleigh, all the things that Gideon and Rachel have discussed are happening here. Green stormwater infrastructure and parks collaboration is just a part of the culture of the community now, and it's so consistent with the objectives that we have in the stormwater program. So I'm an engineer by training. My background is water resources and stormwater management. So that's my perspective. I come at this from a stormwater management, water quality improvements background. But the collaboration with parks and working with our staff and our community and understanding their perspective has led to us being able to achieve these stormwater management goals in a much more collaborative and comprehensive manner. You see our mission, and you see a lot of similarities with the benefits that Gideon and Rachel have spoken about, not only just the water quality benefits, but the outreach engagement with the community, becoming more resilient as a community, are all top of mind in how we're implementing our program. Just a little bit real quick about Raleigh to familiarize yourselves. We're the capital of North Carolina, so located about 120 miles or about 200 kilometers from the coast. Research Triangle Park, you may have heard of. There's a lot of universities here, NC State University, Wolfpack University of North Carolina, and Chapel Hill, as well as Duke University, are all located here in this Research Triangle area. So we're a very educated population here, which has been helpful for us to promote green stormwater infrastructure, nature-based solutions in handling the rapid development that we're seeing here, because the economy is very strong here in Raleigh. We're very lucky, but with it come lots of challenges, growth challenges, development, building, affordable housing, and having enough residences for all of these community members to live in once they move here are all continued ongoing challenges. And on my slide, I mentioned the NHL Carolina Hurricanes hockey. There's a real reason that our hockey team is called the Hurricanes. We are, although we're 200 kilometers from the coast, very prone to tropical storms from the Atlantic. We are in that time of year. In fact, I just got a message from my peer that today was the first tropical storm that was named in the Atlantic. Thankfully, it looks like it's going to stay offshore, but that's something that we have to keep a very close eye on. And some of you may be familiar with Hurricane Helene that hit Western North Carolina last year with really devastating results. And there's no way you can plan or prepare for a 20+ inch storm to hit your community. But the more we can become resilient, educate the community, prepare them, help them understand the impacts of potential urban flooding and the benefits of green stormwater infrastructure and becoming more resilient with nature-based solutions, the better prepared we can be. And I won't repeat a lot of these goals, but it's just such a natural fit to work together collaboratively between engineering, stormwater management, and parks. In terms of those primary goals of flood mitigation, becoming more resilient to climate change, we've implemented. We're up to about 45 green stormwater infrastructure devices, whether those be bioretention, permeable pavement, devices that try to mimic nature by promoting stormwater to infiltrate back into the soil rather than just run off into streams. And implementing those in parks is such a great fit. We work together collaboratively with parks in terms of our joint capital improvements planning, and we share expertise. We jointly do public engagement and education. And then the maintenance aspect, I'll talk a little bit more about that. We use our stormwater funds to actually fund positions in the Parks Department and train the GSI maintenance crew specifically on techniques needed to keep these devices working properly. We also have adopted, and this is an administrative policy within the city of Raleigh, that all city projects that disturb soil must look at how to incorporate green stormwater infrastructure and nature-based solutions into those projects. And stormwater provides funding for the consultants and the engineers and the landscape architects to look at how to do that. And we also provide funding for the construction of implementing those nature-based solutions into projects. And it really has resulted in just the amount of green stormwater infrastructure taking off in Raleigh by incorporating those into so many other aspects of city projects. And parks are a big part of that because it's such a natural fit. But we're incorporating GSI into our new city hall, which if you hear construction noise, it's going up right across the street from me. So my apologies, but we're excited because these high visibility projects have aspects related to green stormwater that are being incorporated. And that helps us spread our word about the messaging of why we're doing that, as well as get buy-in from the community that, yes, the city is leading by example, and the community is starting to expect not only the city to incorporate these types of practices, but private development as well. Stream restoration is another natural fit. There's a lot of streams located in parks in Raleigh, and many of those streams are seeing the negative impacts of urbanization. All of that paving increases the amount of stormwater runoff. often causes erosion of stream banks. Those eroding stream banks create lots of sediment and soils being washed away. And sediment is actually the #1 pollutant here in Raleigh. It has such devastating impacts to aquatic habitat, and it just causes maintenance problems for our pipes and stormwater infrastructure downstream. So by implementing stream restoration and other nature-based techniques, it really provides long-term maintenance benefits as well as aesthetic benefits as well. Another example of a parks project that's just about to start construction. So, obviously part of parks includes adding hardened surfaces. Tennis courts, play areas often need to be paved to serve their recreational purpose. But we implement green stormwater infrastructure in these nature-based solutions to mimic nature, take the stormwater runoff from those paved areas and help infiltrate it back into the soil to mitigate the impacts of those hardened surfaces and make the city more resilient overall. We also work very closely. A big advantage of our Parks Department, they have a horticulture group. They have greenhouses. They grow plants. They help us understand what plants are going to be best installed in our green stormwater infrastructure. They help us maintain them. They help grow those plants. And we also have community outreach programs where we give away trees and live stakes that can be used by private community members on their property to do their own stream bank restoration and stabilization. And we hold workshops to show people those techniques, as well as our own park staff participate in those stream restoration training. And we're implementing programs, not only the well-designed stream restoration projects, but the smaller projects that the parks maintenance staff can do in-house. And we've been doing that for about 3 years now. So we're starting to get to the point where we're able to harvest our own plants and live staking from the previous planting areas and use those to regenerate additional projects in other places throughout the city. The public education and outreach, Rachel mentioned this already, it's a natural fit. We work with community groups. Partners for Environmental Justice has been a great partner for us. And we hold Watershed Learning Network education sessions in the community centers. And then the community members that go through that training and students of all ages, they become our advocates out in the community. Another program that's just starting that we're very excited with, we've partnered with a nonprofit for an apprenticeship program. And this nonprofit, USS, has a curriculum for several levels of students. We're focusing at the beginning on high school students that incorporate GSI into the STEM, or the science, technology, engineering, and math curriculum, where the high school students taking this curriculum actually get their hands dirty on green stormwater infrastructure that the city has contributed funding to build on the school site. And they get involved in the design of the GSI, understand the maintenance of the GSI, and learn real skills. And we see this as a pipeline into Parks job development program and perhaps even some of the GSI maintenance positions that we have here with the city on a permanent basis. Educational displays as well. We look for new ways to reach community members that we normally don't reach, and art and educational displays is a fantastic way to do that. Alluvial decoder, while not green stormwater infrastructure, internationally award-winning project that helps bring education and awareness to the risks of urban flooding. Those color-coded poles represent the elevations of different storms that have hit Raleigh. And then you can see the stylized lettering with the names of those storms. And been a great success in terms of increasing awareness. And on the right is a healing continuum monolith where it has a diagram of a GSI device on it. If you look through the little square, you see an actual GSI stormwater wetland that has been located in that park right next to the GSI, or right to the Greenway Trail. In our outreach on our website, we've incorporated GSI as one of the amenity features in our parks locator map that people can go on and find. And we're looking at wayfinding techniques and other techniques with Greenway Trail mapping and so folks can find our devices and learn more about them. I think a fairly unique feature to Raleigh, we have a 10-member Stormwater Management Advisory Commission. These are volunteers appointed by City Council that help give us policy guidance to staff, and they are our permanent stakeholders group, if you will. They're our liaisons between City Council, between the community, and as well as providing different focuses and expertise from development to nonprofits to land use planners and so forth. So really a great group for us to have on our team. And really winding up, it comes down to community stewardship. You know, I'm an engineer, so engineers are not known for our ability to communicate and collaborate. So that's another way that the parks collaboration has been such an important part for us. They're good at engaging the community. They have the facilities to engage the community. Because ultimately, it really comes down to getting the buy-in and changing the culture of the city as well as the community to make these nature-based solutions just part of what's expected as development occurs in Raleigh and overall just improves our community's resilience. So thank you for the opportunity. Gil, appreciate it very much. And Gideon and Rachel, enjoy working with you as always.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Wayne, Rachel, Gideon, all of you. And so each one of you, could you provide a call to action? We have people from all around the world, South Africa, Kenya, Argentina, Mexico, all over the US, Canada. What would be your call to action so that people see these nature-based solutions optimistic, proactively as a possible solution, so that we are managing stormwater, we can say, okay, we need to manage that stormwater, but we can piggyback into that project and end up having more parks, more green, and also being more resilient. Anyone can start.
I'm glad to start, Gil, and I would say start small and don't give up. Sometimes culture change takes time, and someone mentioned start with a small pilot project, get buy-in on that project, show the benefits to the community and the elected officials. Don't be afraid to brag a little bit about what we're doing with the community, and that's really what builds the momentum. It's taken us about 10 years to get to where we are from when we started talking about GSI, but we started small, and it has really gained a lot of momentum now.
I would add on top of that, keep this human for people. Keep this about what is most important to people, the core values, and what matters to them. If people are coming with fears or worries or a history of mistrust, listen to them. Each of us has an opportunity to correct the harms of the past that have been done in our profession, but also to galvanize an inspired new group of supporters. So listen to people and keep this about things that they care about, their children, our communities, our planet, and doing things differently.
And I could speak maybe a little bit to the folks who work for cities or maybe are elected officials in cities or gadflies and activists in their cities. It's really, really important as a call to action to get your stormwater management departments and your parks departments leadership together to figure out how they can collaborate more systemically, pursue funding together, tear down those barriers, those regulatory barriers, and address any city codes and policies that might inadvertently make it harder to do green infrastructure in their city. There's a lot on the books that might be standing in the way, and the only way you can tackle that is by bringing the practitioners together to look for those commonalities where they can create that win-win.
Wonderful. I love it. It is about people. all ages, all abilities, all backgrounds. And it's also about across all departments. And it is equally relevant in small communities, in large communities, in big cities, anywhere in the world. So we really need to work together. And I want to thank all of you because you do a lot of work together and we all learn a lot from each one of you. Thank you. Thank you. What a great presentation. Each one of you from a different point of view. Rachel from public health and urban planning, Gideon from parks, and Wayne from engineering and city managing stormwater. Conclusion is about people, how to create cities where everybody will be able to live healthier, where cities that are more equitable, that are more sustainable, how to have interdepartmental collaboration, everybody helping within the cities and also cities and states and countries, as well as public sector and private and NGOs, because this is about everyone. Thank you.